I mean that in the, he should aspire to be you. So I didn't clean up my notes after last service. So anyway, I want to direct your attention to our declaration of principle. And the first line, I believe in one God. I believe in one God, one absolute power and first cause to all things. And that first cause is the pure thought that was the foundational initiation of all that is life. Cause equaling effect. And if that first cause, the purity of that, is ever present, it also means that the effect of that is also ever present, which simply means that there is a world of bounty, there's a world of beauty and of good, and it is our privilege and our opportunity to be in alignment with that. It does not take a vacation or a holiday. It is, in and of itself, its ever-present existence. It is the backbone, the foundation of all of life. And as people who profess to be spiritual or seekers of truth, then it becomes our day-to-day activity to be able to peel through all of the veils of illusion, all of the blockage, in order to let the revelation of that effect, of that original cause, to be seen. And not only to be seen, but to be appreciated. And in the appreciation of that, we absorb it, and then we become its own emanation. We become the change that we wish to seek in the world. We become the light bearers. And it's all due to the fact that we elevate ourselves from hoping for something to knowing something, to knowing fundamentally that it is all God. Reverend Susan in first service read this really wonderful piece by the actress Shirley MacLaine, and it was in a book called What If? And she was talking about the difference between hoping and knowing. And a lot of us fall in the category sometimes of hoping for things, right? I hope it works out, which then leaves a little window of opportunity for it to not work out, which leaves a little opportunity for a different kind of effect than the one that I just spoke about. But hoping is defeatist, she says. It allows us to relinquish our personal responsibility because it causes us to divert our attention from what we, on some level, are responsible for. Oh, that part of responsibility. Don't you love that in terms of our spirituality? That, ooh, we're so responsible. And yet we are. We are responsible for the degree of our alignment with the purity of that first cause. She goes on to say that hope enables us to naively pursue a passive point of view with the belief that someone or something else will make things right. Hope is often used by defeatist individuals who don't take responsibility. She goes on to say that hope is decidedly different from prayer. For prayer denotes action and focus. You have to know what it is that you want, what you need in order to pray effectively. It sounds like she's been sneaking into the writings of Ernest Holmes and all of the other wise sages in the metaphysical movement. And this idea of knowing, this idea of declaration and the opportunity that is before us leads me to probably what could be the most important two sentences that exist. They are found in the Bible. They were written by the psalmist David, and it is very familiar to you. It's the 23rd Psalm. And the first line says, "The Lord is my shepherd." The word Lord is synonymous with the word law. And law is the thing that precedes effect. You know, law is cause and effect. It is causation. And when we become a person of knowing, then we can trust and understand that the effect will always be equal to that cause. So the law then is my shepherd. And what is a shepherd really? A shepherd's job is to guard and protect the flock. And our thoughts are sheep. And so a lot of our thoughts need to be what? protected and shepherded in order to be in alignment with this original idea of that there is only one power, one God, one presence. So how often do our sheep go and escape? How often do our sheep then fall into the ravine and into the cracks and into the crevices and cry out, "Oh, help me, help me." And you realize that what the shepherd has at its disposal is its rod, and the rod is then curved, and there's a purpose for that, because that curvature is in the ability to lift out the sheep out of those difficult situations and to put it onto terra firma and to bring it back to safety. So the law then is that thing that lifts those negative thoughts out of those deep, dark, cavernous impasses onto a terra firma and the ability to bring illumination and light back to consciousness. So the law then is our shepherd. And then what follows that? I shall not want. Which simply means that as long as I understand my relationship to law, and that law is my shepherd, then I shall not lack for anything. And the biggest fears that are fundamental to most of us in human form is the idea of lack and wanting something. And here in these simple two declarative statements, we are given a mantra which is really our passport through this human experience for the rest of our days on this planet. The law is my shepherd. I shall not want. It's not, I hope that the law is my shepherd and I hope that I shall not want. It's that I know these things. I know these things. And how do I know these things? Because I have cultivated a relationship with this. I have done my due diligence. I have allowed myself to pierce through whatever fears that I've had by going and meeting those fears and being reminded time and time and time again of this particular fundamental truth. I've been picked up out of the ravine and out of the cracks and crevices so many times by the crook of that particular rod that has brought me back to a place of stability, to where I've been able to look at that and go, I see how my particular cause produced that particular effect. And if my inheritance, if my inherent nature is centered around the idea that I shall not want, then what's my role and what is my responsibility with that? It's that. It's to be able to whistle a happy tune. That is my responsibility, right? I shall not want. I shall not want is not based on if. In other words, it's not conditional as if something's being held from me. The I shall not want is based on when. And there's a difference. I will understand the I shall not want. I will understand the I will not lack for anything when I understand and allow my alignment with the law as my shepherd. When that becomes my right relationship. When that becomes more invaluable to me than making someone else wrong. When it becomes more important to me than getting even for any kind of grievance. My right relationship with law as my shepherd will be in its perfect form when I stop trying to bank or use my wounding as my currency. I heard that. And you know what I'm talking about, right? So many of us use our wounding as our currency, because we get paid through the attention that our wounds bring and the level by which we tell it over and over again. But when the law is my shepherd and I fully understand that, then I am in that golden rule sensibility that tells me that if I shall not lack for anything, then my opportunity in this lifetime is to give and to serve and to joyously be in that mental proxy that lifts other people up in their forgetfulness. that I am there to lend that support, that I'm allowed to take something like Thanksgiving and make it Thanks living, because it is a lifestyle and not reserved for just a particular time of the year. Then I am in right alignment. And if we go back and we actually look at the 23rd Psalm, we can see the power of its declarative nature. And we can understand how you and I were set up to thrive. How we were set up to thrive, that it is our birthright, our very nature to thrive. The law is my shepherd, I shall not want. It makes me lie down in verdant, green, beautiful pastures, and it leads me beside still waters of infinite knowing, and it restores the very soul of who and what I am. It guides me on paths of righteousness, of right living, of right choosing, of right relationship, of right creativity. And it does this in its own name's sake. And yea, though sometimes I walk through the valley of these forgetful moments, yea, though my sheep nature goes into territories of fear and into the shadows of seeming death of dreams, that I shall not fear. For it is with me, and its rod and its staff, not only does it comfort me, but it lifts me back up time and time again. And it prepares a table before me, just like the table that you probably had on Thursday. It prepares a table before me in the presence of everything that tells me, enemy of thought, that I don't have. It continues to lay out a bounty for me, even when in my own thought process, my own thought enemy, it pushes those things away. It still prepares the table. It anoints my head. It anoints my head with the oil of divine remembrance, and that which is the cup of my receptivity runneth over. And you see, this thing called goodness and loving kindness does follow me all of the days of my life. Not just when I recognize the law as my shepherd, but it follows me in anticipation and in recognition, even in my forgetfulness. And when I do remember, I can always note that I dwell in this, the house that this law made forever and forever. And that is the story of my life. That is the story of your life. That is the guidepost. That is the returning home. That is everything that is set up for you and I to win. And so when I think about the forgetfulness, when I think about hope versus knowing, and I look back on my own situations and my own circumstances of hoping for something and my forgetfulness, I'm always drawn to the statement that has appeared, particularly from Ralph Waldo Emerson, that said that the universe conspires in our favor. Now, in its conspirational energy, it doesn't always look very loving and joyous, does it? And I was telling the beginner class a couple of weeks ago that there are things that only reveal themselves in higher truths long after they've happened. Because sometimes when we are in it, we fail to see that what is happening for us is that conspirational energy, or that shepherd lifting us and forcing us into new territory. And it isn't until we've gone into the new territory, into the mystery, that we've been able to take a deep breath and go, thank God that the universe was conspiring me to move out a level of conformity and of something that was comfortable in order for me to uncover a bigger expression of what it is that I am, of what it is that I'm designed to be. Because if it hadn't happened, I really wouldn't understand the second part of the I shall not want, or I shall not lack for anything. Because you see, in order to be congruent with receiving that, that I will never lack for anything. I've got some living to do. I've got some mystery piercing to go. I've got some adventure in order to embrace before me, because it will just be a concept unless I am forced by the universe into greater expressions of being. And I often think of the rich stories that are handed down. There's so many wonderful stories centered around the great Buddha. And some of those stories are told from the Buddha himself, and some are told from those who worship the Buddha, or those who admire and hold the Buddha in high esteem. And one of these, I think it originated from the Thai tradition, and it came from the follower of Buddha. And it was a young beggar man who lived a good life, but lived a very meager life. In fact, he existed on just the scraps that were thrown out by all of the wealthy people around in the village that he lived. And yet, as he lived this good life and tried to be righteous in his heart, someone would come and steal the scraps that he would have to eat. And he couldn't understand that. With all the surplus that was there, why was someone coming and stealing from him that had so little? And so he decided that he would wait and sit up one evening after his meager collection of food to eat to see who it might be. And what he discovered was it was a mouse. And this little mouse was coming and just helping himself to everything that this young beggar man had collected. And he said to the mouse, "Why me? Why are you taking my stuff when there seems to be so much surplus out there? Why have you pinpointed me?" And the mouse just kind of went, "I don't know. Maybe it's a part of your destiny. In fact, maybe if you want some clarity around that, you should ask the Buddha himself." And that sparked an idea in this young beggar, and he decided that he was actually going to go on the journey to find the Buddha, to ask him, why is this a part of my destiny? And so he began to walk, and not quite sure of the path and where he was going. It found it in the darkness of night and in the cold of the night. And he went and he knocked on the door of a wealthy mansion looking for some type of shelter and food. And the man of that home invited him in, and the wife cooked for him, and they fixed him up and they fed him. And they said, "Why are you out here wandering in the darkness like this?" And he said, "I'm off to seek the Buddha. I have a question for him. I want to know why, what is my destiny?" And they said, "Really?" And they said, "When you find him, will you ask him a question for us?" And he said, "Sure." And they said, our daughter, our beautiful daughter, has never been able to speak. And we have searched high and low to find a remedy to help her, to give her this gift of speech, but we have failed. When you find the Buddha, will you ask him what we can do in order to give speech to our daughter? And he said, "Absolutely." And the next morning, he continued his journey, and he came to a pass, and he looked up, and there was a series of incredible mountains that he was going to have to cross. And not quite sure what to do, as he was standing there contemplating how to move forward, a wizard appeared. And the wizard was holding a staff. And theme, notice the theme going on. And so the wizard said, "What are you doing?" And the young beggar man said, I need to cross these mountains because I'm trying to find the Buddha. I have a question to ask him about my destiny. And the wizard said, "Really? Can I ask you, when you find him, if you'll ask him a question for me?" And the young beggar man said, "Sure." And he said, "Ask him why, after 1,000 years of existence as a wizard, I've still not been able to ascend into heaven. I'm long overdue. And I'm wondering if you would just ask him what it is that I need to do in order for that to happen." And the young beggar man said, of course I will ask him that." And the wizard said, and in favor of that, I just ask you to hold on to my cloak. And he took his staff and he held it into the air, and they flew across all of the mountain ranges and got to the other side. And the young beggar man was quite appreciative, and then he looked forward as he was going to continue his journey, and there was a massive lake. And he contemplated, how am I going to cross this massive lake in order to get to the Buddha? And right then, an ancient tortoise came out of the water. And the tortoise said, young man, what is it that you wish? And he said, I'm trying to cross this lake to get to the Buddha. I want to ask him a question about my destiny. And the tortoise said, really? When you find him, will you ask a question for me? And he said, sure. And the tortoise said, according to my religion, I should have transformed into a dragon by now. I've been a tortoise for 500 years, and it's my turn to be my dragon in nature. Will you ask him, what's the holdup? And he said, sure. And the tortoise said, to show you how grateful I am, climb upon my back. And the tortoise zip-lined across the water with him on the back as they crossed the lake. And when he got to the other side, he found the area where the Buddha was. And there was a crowd that had gathered. And as he sat piously and humbly in that crowd, looking at the Buddha, eager to be able to ask these questions, the Buddha announced, today, I will only answer 3 questions per person. And the young man went, my question, the family's question, the wizard's question, the turtle's question. And he had 4 questions to ask. And as he contemplated his predicament, he said, the wizard, 1,000 years, he's been waiting in order to ascend into heaven. He deserves to have his question answered. And the tortoise, 500 years, waiting for his transformation into his dragon nature. Surely his questions should be asked. And this family with this daughter who hasn't been able to speak, that condition is far worse than mine. I can always go back to being a beggar. And when it was his time, he asked the Buddha those 3 questions. And the Buddha said to him, tell the wizard that he has forgotten that the power is within him and not in his staff. Tell him that the moment he lets the staff go and lays it down, that power and that resurgence will bring him into the ascension that he's longed for. Tell the tortoise that he's too attached to his shell. He's unwilling to crawl from beneath that, and because of that, his inherent nature, his dragon nature, has been suppressed. Tell him all that he has to do is to extricate himself from that, and he will have that. And tell the family that the moment that their daughter meets her particular soulmate, the union of those 2 individuals will ignite within her the power of her speech, and she will be able to speak from that moment on. And the young beggar thanked him for that information, and he circled back. And when he got to the lake, the tortoise was still waiting on that particular side, and the young beggar man said, I have good news. All that you have to do is to leave your shell. That has actually been holding you back. And the tortoise said, of course. I've sought my safety under this particular thing that was my identity. Of course, if I just leave this thing, I will be able to experience that. And the moment that he crawled out, he turned into this magnificent dragon. And he scooped up the young beggar man and put him on his neck and said, let's fly back over to the mountains. And so they flew. When they landed, there was the wizard in anticipation. He had a feeling that somehow this young beggar man would come back and give him the answer that he had been seeking. And he said, I talked to the Buddha, and all he said was, you've forgotten that your power is within. Yes, it's been in this staff, but it's not the totality of who you are. You've lost your sense of identity with personal attachment. Just lay it down. And the wizard said, okay. And the moment that he did that, the wizard began to create this transcension energy, and he began to elevate. And just before he took off, he said, here, the staff is yours now. And the young beggar man, now holding this staff of power and beginning to feel a resurgence about his own identity, began to walk back until he returned to the wealthy family's home. And he knocked on the door, and they were so glad to see him. And he says, I have an answer for you. And he said, your daughter will begin to speak the moment that she aligns with her soul mate. And just in that moment, the daughter comes down the staircase and she says, is that young man that was here a week or so ago? It's a Cinderella story of sorts. And you see that ancient story has very many elements. It has multiple different endings. But I find that each of those characters and each of those gifts are what is afforded us in the sensibility of the I shall not want. Because what gets in the way? What gets in the way of your transformation into your dragon nature, or whatever that bigger expression is that you and I have become too attached to what we think we are or who we are. We're so afraid to move into a new arena because of the classifications and the titles and the way in which we talk about ourselves. And we're so afraid of allowing that which is the heaven within us to be expressed because we think the power is in something outside of us. We're so afraid of being able to find our voice and to speak because we feel as though something is missing, that we are not connected to the soul of who we are. But what I love most about this story is the mouse. Because I think that the mouse, the whole time, was Buddha. You see, that's the universe conspiring part that I was referring to. Whatever is your agitation is your liberation. Whatever is the thing that is gnawing at you to play at a bigger level is the universe inside of you that is conspiring for you to stop walking around trying to be comfortable. You're not designed to be comfortable. You're designed for expansion. And you see, comfortability is in alignment with attachment. And the more that you and I become attached to things, rather than being open to the experience of what is, then we will fall under the illusion of wanting. And the wanting that I'm talking about is the desire in thinking that we lack for something and we may never have it. Because we have forgotten that the law is our shepherd. And so I want you to seriously give some contemplation to who you are, to what you are at your very core, to what is the inherent nature of you, and to understand that the law which governs your thought is your shepherd. And when we are in right relationship with that, then we will not want for anything. I want you to imagine, I want you to give me the gift. Give your neighbor the gift. Give yourself the gift that at least 5 minutes a day that you will spend time in the arena of thought imagining that you want for nothing, that all that you have and all that you will ever desire will be given to you because of right relationship, how would that change your life? How many of you are sitting here today going through the motions of gratitude rather than really viscerally, fundamentally, cellularly being so grateful to be a part of this human experience because you understand at a soul level what is before you as an opportunity? I'm not my past. I'm not my mistakes. I'm not my diagnosis. I'm not my family's history. I'm none of the things that have shelled me and kept me limited. I am none of those things. What I am is pure potential energy, pure potential creative energy that is predicated on the way in which I devote myself and the way in which I think into this divine law. That is my shepherd. I no longer then have to play at being grateful. I no longer have to go through the motions of pretending to be spiritual or conscious. I am conscious. I am the embodiment of that illumination. I am being and living and acting and moving on purpose. And I shall not want. I shall not want. And that is the gift, the true gift that is given to us. Thanksgiving and the way in which I thanks living and the way in which I move through the world. May we never, ever forget that. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.